Before the innovative sounds of amapiano, gqom, and kwaito, all new age South African musical genres, before the trendy, elaborate dances and standout lyrics, jazz laid the foundation for what is today a style and sound that is uniquely South African. Right at the helm of apartheid South Africa, songs of freedom, life, and sacrifice inspired the then youngsters of that generation. And among those inspired was a young Hugh Masekela. It's funny how we view jazz as an old or older people genre, when in hindsight, jazz at its peak, also known as the golden age of jazz, was made and adored by young people, which shows that genres are merely a time thing, meaning that one day even amapiano will be considered old people music. But that's a topic for another day. Born Hugh Ramapolo Masekela in 1939, Witbank, South Africa, rooted and surrounded by a community that was engraved in the vibrant jazz scene of the then South Africa. Hugh began playing the piano at an early age, but soon found his true passion in the trumpet. With talent so evident at that young age, he rose to become one of the prominent figures in the Johannesburg jazz scene. But despite all that success, apartheid was apartheid, and he too was just as deeply affected by the injustices. At the age of 21, Hugh found himself exiled and a student at the Manhattan School of Music in New York, where he rubbed shoulders with some of the greats such as Miles Davis and Louis Armstrong. He married fellow jazz singer and activist Miriam Makeba, forming one of the most influential musical partnerships of that era. Together, they used their music to amplify the voices of the oppressed, becoming symbols of resistance and resilience in the face of adversity. He was a tireless advocate for social justice, using his platform to speak against apartheid and other forms of oppression. His influence can still be felt today from countless artists who continue to draw inspiration from his music and message of hope and liberation. Having a career that spanned over 5 decades and 40-plus albums under his belt, breaking down each project will be a tedious task, so I have categorized them in years and have focused on the most notable ones. 1962 to 1963, he released Trumpet Africaine. This was his debut album. It blended traditional African rhythms with elements of jazz and blues, establishing and setting him apart as a unique voice in the world of music. It included songs like Wimowe, an adaptation of Solomon Linda's Mbube, aka The Lion Sleeps Tonight, and the Click song, aka Uqonkqothwane, made famous by Miriam Makeba. The album received great reviews, with one reviewer stating that it was fairly lively with a high jazz component. 1965 to 1966, albums titled Grrr, The Americanization of Ooga Booga, Hugh Masekela's next album, and The Emancipation of Hugh Masekela were released. Grrr included songs like Njilo Njilo and Sharpville, all instrumental tracks. In The Americanization of Ooga Booga, standout songs like Bajabule Bonke and Abangoma, penned by his wife Miriam Makeba, exuded and emulated the spirit of Africa, and this was a live album. Hugh Masekela's next album consisted mainly of pop covers, while The Emancipation of Hugh Masekela was more dynamic in its fusing of genres. 1968, he released The Promise of a Future, which included the song Grazing in the Sun, which became his breakout song, propelling him to global fame as it was an international hit, peaking at number 1 at the US Billboard Hot 100, 6th on the R&B charts, and was ranked 18th biggest song of that year. He also released Africa 68 and The Lasting Impression of Hugh Masekela. 1969, albums Masekela and The Best of Masekela were released. The Best of Masekela being a compilation album with the hit song Mace and Grenades, highlighting the injustice of oppression, shedding a light on the cruelty and devastation of war. 1970, he released Reconstruction. 1971, Hugh Masekela and the Union of South Africa was released. 1972, he released Home is Where the Heart Is, which received its own critical acclaim as songs like Nomali and Maseru further echoed the lively and bluesy ballads of his African heritage. 1973, he released Introducing Hatzola Sounds. 1974, I Am Not Afraid. And 1975, The Boys Doing It. These albums included a mixture of soul, funk, groove, and traditional African sounds. 1976, he released albums Colonial Man and Melody Maker. 1977, he released You Told Your Mama Not to Worry, which included one of my favorite songs, Soweto Blues, which pays homage to the uprising. More details about the uprising on my other video of Sarafina the soundtrack. 1978, he released a collaborative album with Herb Alpert, simply titled Herb Alpert Hugh Masekela, and a live album with Herb titled The Main Event Live. In 1982, he released Home. 1984, he released Techno Bush. 1985, he released the album Waiting for Rain. And in 1987, he released the album Tomorrow, which included freedom songs such as Maibuye and the famous Nelson Mandela tribute song Bring Him Back Home. 1988, he released the album Uptown, which included a few covers and another favorite song of mine, Nomalizo. And in 1992, he released the album Beating Around the Bush, which included the song Sekunjalo. 1993, he released the album Hope, a live compilation album. Then in 1994, he released another compilation album titled Stimela after his famous song. 1996, he released Notes of Life, which included two songs about Nelson Mandela titled Father of the Nation and Thank You Madiba. 1998, he released the very outstanding album Black to the Future, which included some of the best and chart-topping music such as Chelese, an empowerment song about recognizing each other's humanity and the spirit of unity and Ubuntu. I really love that song. And another fan favorite, Kauleza, which when translated means hurry up. It also is a callback to the days of apartheid, where the oppressed had no sense of privacy as policemen could barge in and terrorize as they pleased, prompting those inside to hurriedly hide all that was considered illegal so that they don't get in trouble. 1996, he released a collection album, The Best of Hugh Masekela on Novus. In 2000, he released 60, which included another fan favorite song, Tanai, a jazzy upbeat duet with Thandiswa Mazwai, as well as songs like Sipinkomo and Fela, a tribute song to fellow purveyor of culture and musician Fela Kuti. 2001, he made another compilation album, Grazing in the Grass, The Best of Hugh Masekela. This was aimed to celebrate his remarkable career, which included iconic songs from his very long catalog. 2002, he released the albums Time and Live at the BBC. Time earned him a SAMA, aka South African Music Award, and Live at the BBC included songs from the Waiting and the Rain album. 2004, he released a compilation album titled The Collection and soundtrack album Still Grazing, which was meant to go with his autobiographical book of the same name. 2005, albums The Revival and Almost Like Being in Jazz were released, followed by The Chasayers in 2006 and Live at the Market Theatre in 2007. Paula was released in 2008. Jabulani, Playing at Work, and Friends were released in 2012. And Friends was a collaborative album with Larry Willis, a sequel to Almost Being Like in Jazz. And finally, 2016, the album No Borders, his 44th studio album, was released, his last and final before his passing in 2018. He truly is the father of South African jazz music, as he and his peers laid the groundwork for multitudes of genres that have come out since. He was a true virtuoso in his craft and the blueprint for the face of jazz today. He mentored and collaborated with countless artists, influencing generations of music, opening doors for African artists to break into the global music scene. His legacy transcends music. His contributions not only enriched jazz and world music, but also served as a cultural bridge between Africa and the rest of the world, cementing his place as one of the most influential musicians of the 20th century.